Hello and welcome to the Kick in the Creatives podcast, hosted by myself, Sandra Busby, and my fellow creative Tara Roskell, offering you interviews, inspiration, motivation, and a gentle prod in the right direction. And for lots more information, challenges, and other useful tools to help you get creating, you can go to www.kickinthecreatives.com. And of course, this is where you can also find today's show notes. Enjoy the show.
Our guest today is Jason Chambers, who recently quit his job to become a full-time artist. Now, I think that's something many of us would dream of. Jason is a US-based artist who specialises in abstract cubism. Jason always wanted to be an artist, but life took him in a different direction. After selling a few of his paintings online, a friend encouraged him to try selling his art as NFTs. Now, NFTs are a way of selling digital art with the proof of ownership. Now, although he was initially reluctant, as he liked to paint by hand, Jason decided to give it a try. And you can find out what happened in the podcast.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for coming on and chatting to us today. We're dying to get to know you a bit better.
Thank you.
The first question we wanted to ask is, have you always drawn from a young age?
I have ever since I can remember. I think I was about 10 years old. Really stands out to me when I really got involved with art. My father was an editorial cartoonist for our local newspaper, and I remember standing over his shoulder, watching him draw these cartoons and being in complete awe. And I think I knew from about 10 years old that I wanted to be an artist. So, and from then on, I pretty much drew nonstop, and I copied all kinds of drawings from, comic strips to, cartoons that were on TV. So, for as long as I can remember, I've done this.
What an amazing job. I was just thinking your dad had. Wow.
Just an interesting question then to add to that. A lot of people sort of say you're born with talent, and we sort of say, well, you can definitely learn it. But do you think then there's an element of that kind of genetic, creative, gene, I guess, that is passed down? Do you believe in that? Or do you just think you were inspired because your dad was an artist and you've come from an artistic background?
I think that some people, may be more inclined to art. Just like I said, there may be a genetic aspect to it, but I think that practice is key really to anything. And I think that anybody that wants to get into art, and if they have that drive and that desire, they can develop the skills they need to be a good artist.
Absolutely, yeah.
So did you go to art school, or are you self-taught?
I am 100% self-taught. I think that I would have liked to have went to art school, but yeah, it just wasn't in the cards for me. I got married very young and had children very young, and my entire life has been about my family. So, in fact, like now I do this full time, but I had to wait many years to be able to do this full time. So.
Were you always imagining that you would actually go back to art when you sort of, took another job or whatever?
Oh yes, always. It was always that, that daydream of doing, of returning to artwork and doing this full time and living this glamorous life, which
covered in paint,
covered in paint and going to art shows. So, but yeah, I've always daydreamed about this, and it's a dream come true to be able to do this now.
So how did you self-teach yourself? I was going to say self-taught, but bad grammar. How did you self-teach yourself?
I copied everything. Really, that's how I taught myself. Any kind of technique, especially in the age of YouTube and all this other great stuff, But yeah, that's copying is a great way to learn.
It's a great way to get inside the minds of another artist as well, isn't it?
It is.
To just see how they work. So. I remember once I was copying, because I kind of did that as well. I did a bit of that, and I remember copying a Leonardo da Vinci sketch, and I thought this doesn't feel right. It feels really odd. I just can't put my finger on, because I'd copied other artists. It was fine, and then it occurred to me that he was left-handed, so all of his hatching was a completely different way than I was doing it. So it just felt totally alien to me. Once I thought,
really interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah. Once I I did it my way, but his style, I that was fine. It was just not. I'm not saying I was as good as him by any stretch, but when I was back then, I was learning. It was kind of like a real an eye opener for me, actually. That when you copy someone, a lot of it is as well as whether they're right-handed or left-handed as to how they work. So yeah, that was interesting. So you do a lot of cubism, don't you? And I'm wondering what drew you in particular to that as your style.
That's a really good question, and it's something that I think about a lot. You know, why do I stick with this particular style? And I think when I first discovered cubism, you know, it was a very abstract way of thinking, or an abstract way of looking at an object or a person. You know, you're looking at it from multiple sides, multiple perspectives, and I think that that's kind of what drew me in. My artwork is definitely, you know, leans towards cubism, but I think that I'm maybe a little more abstract cubism than like your traditional, like early 1900s, you know, Picasso, Bosca, cubist works.
So you said you copied artists. Were you copying cubist artists?
Oh yes, most definitely, and most notably Picasso. And that was like from like my high school years on. I would, you know, copy anything from, you know, his, you know, Guernica, you know, the most famous, you know, of his works, to, you know, to, was it Sylvette? I think Sylvette was probably one of my favorite paintings by him. But yeah, I pretty much copied, you know, any of those big artists.
Were you copying as in painting with, you know, the oils or the acrylics out, or were you doing drawings more?
I mainly focused on drawings. I did do a few paintings, but I was more I cared more about the I can't talk this morning. I cared more about the draftsmanship of it, you know.
Yeah.
You have to be in order to be a good painter, you have to be a good draftsman to begin with. So.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that leads really well into the next question, actually. Do you use a sketchbook? And if you do you draw in the same style to what we see, you know, you're putting out there in your cubist work, or do you draw different things?
I do keep sketchbooks. My sketchbooks are probably my most prized possessions. I mean, they're my whole life. And I constantly refer back to my sketchbooks to, you know, kind of gain inspiration for different pieces. And to answer your question, yes, my artwork and my sketchbooks are very close to what I create as my finished pieces.
Are you one of these people that has these beautiful sketchbooks, and they're all?
I have. I have two sketchbooks.
Oh right.
I have one that I will show people. Those are the pretty ones. And then I have ones that are marked up, and I have notes written, and they're just for my eyes only, and no one will ever see those. But I do have ones that I have no problem showing other people. You know.
Yeah, it's always a good idea, isn't it, to have a secret sketchbook?
It is. It's kind of like a journal. It's very private, you know. So
yeah, and there's no pressure either, is there? But there's a common misconception, isn't there, when you look at social media and you see all these people sort of sharing their amazing sketchbooks, which are a kind of artwork in themselves, and newbies kind of look at it and think, oh, you know, my sketchbook doesn't look like that, and it's not always, you know, the thing is, what they often don't realize is that, you know, most people will only share those sketches. They're not going to necessarily share the ones that they don't particularly like or didn't particularly work. So, you know, what kind of materials do you use for your work?
I love pen and ink. I am in love with that particular medium. But I do venture off. I do create in various, you know, I create in acrylics, I create in oils, I create in pastels and charcoal. But I love pen and ink, and I don't know what draws me to that, but I love pen and ink work.
Well, you can trust as well that it's going to last, can't you? I think with pastels, they're a little bit. I worry when I used to create some things in pastels in the past, and, you know, they fade, and even if you fix them, they still fade. So I love, you know, creating work that's I know is going to last. And at least pen and ink, you do know that, don't you? It's going to be something that, you know, will last
definitely.
a very long time.
Definitely, yeah. But I think something with the pastels, you know, like they feel so primitive to me. You know, it's kind of like caveman drawing on cave, you know, cave walls. I think that's why I like the charcoal and the pastels, you know.
Yeah.
I was going to say, the pen and ink, are you using pens, or are you using like dip pens to do your work?
I usually use pens. I use like micron pens or uni pens, and I do have some dip pens, and I do use some brushes where actually dip into an inkwell.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And Posca, isn't it a Posca marker you were using on Twitter? You saying about how much you've fallen in love with that.
Oh, I just fell in love. I had bought some. I am like I hoard art supplies. I will go to an art store and I will buy crap that I do not need, but I will buy it and I will stick it in my closet. And I pulled out some Posca markers yesterday for the first time and started using them on some really large watercolor paper, and I love them. They're so great.
Actually, they'd work really well for your work as well. I think you can get really nice bold colours with those, can't you? Do you know? I always had trouble with that. Have you ever tried using them on white? I can never get not on white. So using that white Posca on a black, I can never get it to stand out.
Yeah, I haven't done that. I'm going to have to. No, not a good deal.
No, not a good deal. Not in my opinion, anyway. So what's your process for creating a piece of art?
Oh, it's very, very intuitive. It's very organic. I like to start off with these. People call them scribble drawings, and I don't know a better word for it than that. But I start off with this random continuous line all over the entire page or over the entire canvas, and then from these random lines, I start seeing shapes that I've formed, and I'll start picking out, like maybe I'll see eyes, or I'll see a nose, or I'll see a mouth, or a hand, or an arm, or something. And it's kind of like, I look at it kind of like how a sculptor takes a piece of clay and they mold it into something, and at the very end of it, you've got this beautiful sculpture. And that's kind of how I look at creating my work, is I'm kind of like chiseling away at these different lines and shapes until I have some kind of composition.
And will you do that in a sketchbook and then replicate it on a larger piece, or is that straight in there on the big work?
So I used to only everything that I did was completely organic. Whatever I did in a sketchbook, I wouldn't replicate it. But now, because I am working on much larger pieces, if I have a sketch that I really, really like, I'll actually take that and transfer that onto a large piece. The piece that I'm working on currently is completely intuitive. It was just like, let me throw some lines down and see what happens with this Posca marker. So.
I really like working like that. I don't do it very often, but there is something really freeing about working like that, isn't there?
It is. I get into this zone, and I'm like hyper focused on what I'm working on.
So I think most artists remember when they sold their very first bit of art. When was that for you, and how did that come about?
Oh, that was I think it was like a life-changing moment for me. I've always created art, and I would sell little bits of pieces every now and then. But I think when I started selling artwork in the style that I create in now, I want to say it was in 2019, early 2019, maybe like May 2019. So kind of backtrack a little bit. So when I started creating this artwork, I started creating them in little 3x5 inch sketchbooks, little small pocket sketchbooks, doing these little drawings. There were little doodles that I would do when I was at my job and I was bored, and I would sit there and do these little drawings. My coworkers kind of took note of what I was doing, and they were like, these are really cool. And I was like, thanks. So then I got this kind of habit of, I would create one of these little small drawings, and then I'd pass my sketchbook around to my coworkers, and they would all, ooh and ah over them, right? So I decided to take this same style and translate it onto, a little bit bigger of a piece. And I ended up, I think within just a few months, I sold this first piece to a collector in Texas. I was showing them on social media, by the way. So that's how they found me. It was on social media, it was on Instagram. And shortly thereafter, I sold another piece to a collector in Paris. And then right then I was like, all right, I'm selling stuff to France now. This is great. We're international now. So, and so from then on, I was kind of consistently selling pieces here and there. So.
Did you have a really big social media following then? Because to sell on social media, I mean, that's quite an achievement.
Not really. I think that I had maybe 400 or 500 followers, maybe.
All right.
But this is really before I kind of figured out how to boost engagement and how to gain more followers on social media. I think now, don't want to come across as bragging, but I think I have around 11,000 followers right now after, I don't know, 2.5 years of consistently posting and engaging with others. So my sales have definitely picked up as my following has grown. But
yeah, I mean, that's something I think we all struggle with that, don't we? That, the algorithms and all this sort of stuff, trying to understand it all. And but I know you recently quit your job to become a full-time artist. So I'm presuming that job wasn't a creative one. What made you take the plunge to do that? Because it's quite a risky decision, isn't it? Was it scary to do that?
Oh, it was scary, and it still is. Especially, I'm still fairly new at doing this. I think what gave me the confidence to do this was, which I would have guessed we're going to probably segue into NFTs, but it was NFTs that gave me the opportunity to go into doing this full time.
So was it a creative job you were in at the time, or what were you doing?
No. I worked in manufacturing. I worked for a factory. I worked 12-hour rotating shifts, as a shift worker. So definitely not creative at all.
Yeah.
It was.
So, maybe you could tell us a little bit about how you got into NFTs and what exactly NFTs are.
Yeah, can I just
go on? Sorry,
because Tara, you have just recently introduced me to this whole NFT thing, which I'm going to hopefully shortly be doing myself. And quite honestly, the first thing I want to know is, what does NFT stand for? Because I don't even know that.
NFT stands for non-fungible token. That's what it stands for.
Oh yeah, none the wiser now.
Well, that makes perfect sense. The penny's finally dropped.
And all that really means is it's a digital contract that lives on. It's called the blockchain, and it's a place where you can sell anything from music, or in my case, I sell art. But you can pretty much sell anything as an NFT, which is so cool.
So could you tell us a little bit how you got into NFTs and basically what you do and how you go about it?
So I got into NFTs, and I was very resistant to getting into them because I am very much a traditional art snob. I like to paint on canvas or ink on paper, and I was very resistant to getting into them because I think I didn't really understand what they were. I had a friend of mine. He's actually pretty big in the NFT world. His name's Gabe Weiss, and he had mentioned to me about getting into NFTs, and I was kind of like, "Yeah, man, that sounds great, but just not really for me." And this was in around April of last year, and I think around May he started having a lot of success. Like, he was selling nonstop, and I said, "Well, what the heck? I'll just go ahead and I'll take some of my physical work, I'll digitize them, and I'll put them on OpenSea and see what happens." And nothing really happened until about like the end of May. I finally had a sale.
So this was cool. Like a month later, was it, after you put your first one up?
A month later, roughly about a month later, I finally sold an NFT. I think I sold it for like $100 and something. But I was ecstatic. I'm like, I just sold a digital piece of work, a JPEG for, a couple $100. And so I was like, over the moon. And then nothing else sold again for about another month and a half. And then within about a month and a half, I had a collector that I don't know why they did it, but they saw something in my work and they bought my entire collection, which was, I think, maybe 15 pieces that I had in there. Wow. But they bought everything at one fell swoop. And that gave me the momentum to go further. I was able to go out and, to get on Twitter and say, "Thank you so much, yada, 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 for buying, my entire collection," and that gave me momentum. So when I started dropping more NFTs, they would sell like right away. And this just continued up until I was featured on OpenSea's homepage. And if you guys aren't familiar with OpenSea or being featured on the homepage, that's like getting a golden ticket. I mean, that's where everything takes off from there. So life changing.
So say you have a painting and you take a photograph of it and you have it on your OpenSea site for sale as a digital. Once that sells, that digital image is then gone. You can't sell it multiple times. Am I right? Is it just because
that's correct?
Oh, that's correct. Oh, okay. I see. Gosh, I better get painting. Wow, especially as I'm a realism painter as well, so it takes me a while to.
Takes a little while.
Can
It definitely. Go ahead.
No, sorry, carry on.
No, I was just saying, yeah. Once you create that NFT, that digital piece, now you can sell it as multiple editions, which is cool. But if you sell it as a single, as a one of one, you can really only mint that one time on one platform.
And I guess it's more expensive then, isn't it? If you just have the one, I guess.
It can be, yes, it can be.
Mm-hmm.
I think it depends how well known you are as well, doesn't it? I'm guessing if you're quite well known, you can sell editions for
right.
quite a bit.
It's the learning part, isn't it? The learning part is huge. I mean, I just set up my OpenSeas account yesterday and managed to set myself up with a digital wallet. And I texted Tara and said, God, my brain feels like it's going to explode. It was, but I think once you get your head around it, I mean, I felt so good when I'd actually done it, because I'm not someone who naturally, I'm a creative. I'm not, a Einstein. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes when you're doing things like this, you feel like you have to be, don't you? But just taking these things step by step, it's not actually as scary as it first seems, is it? Once you sort of start.
And that's the hardest part, like you said, is starting. I've got a lot of people that I've helped onboard into the space, and they were trying to have this big strategy and this big plan. And I'm one of those where I'm just going to jump in. I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to create it, and I'm going to jump in, because if I sit here and I think about it too long, I'm liable to back out.
I don't know about you, Jason, but when I did it, and I only did it a few weeks ago, well, maybe a couple of months ago initially, I opened an OpenSea account, but then actually doing that initialization thing, I was terrified, because I didn't know about all these cryptocurrencies that you had to use, and I was scared to death how much it was actually going to cost me, because it's all not shown up front. Were you the same when you did it?
Yes, I was definitely that way. In fact, I had a hard time, with OpenSea, you pay that one-time gas fee when you list your first item. But of course, I didn't understand how it worked. And the gas fee at the time, I think, was like, I don't know, $150 or something like that. And I was just like, and to me, that was like a lot of money to be able to lay down on the off chance that something that I put out might sell. But it's paid for itself many times over since then. So it's definitely a worthy investment. But it was a little worrisome in the beginning. Yeah,
for anyone who's listening, the gas fee is kind of like a transaction fee, isn't it?
Yep,
I'm glad you said that, because I keep saying, what is all this lingo? I know, Tara, you said something about being minted, and I thought I would take that as you've just earned a ton of money, because in England, if you're minted, you've got loads of money. And I'm thinking, wow, what's she sold now? And it turns out it's something else. It's some kind of other lingo. So it's a whole new language.
You can look at minting just like what a treasury department does when they mint coins. They mint a coin, you mint artwork. That's pretty much interchangeable.
I was talking to my son yesterday, and he's 25, and he just gave me a call, and I said, "Oh, sorry, I'm right in the middle of something at the moment." He said, "What are you up to?" And I said, "I'm looking at creating some NFTs, and I'm trying to learn about cryptocurrency, something." And he said, "Ethereum." And he goes, "Ethereum." And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "What on earth would you know about all of that?" I'm like, well, it's like I shouldn't know about any of this stuff because I'm way too old. It just made me chuckle. So as far as the marketing side of things then is concerned, obviously you still sell your originals and presumably prints and things like that, physical items. So along with trying to market those sales, how do you also go about marketing your NFT art? Do you market them differently, or do you kind of lump it all into one thing?
I lump it into one thing, and it's my marketing primarily consists of social media. I mean, really, from Facebook to Instagram to Twitter. But it's pretty much all done the same way.
And do you find, because I've basically been told that Twitter is the place to be if you want to sell NFTs at the moment?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Twitter is the NFT hub. That's where you're going to find the community. You'll find a little bit of them on Instagram, but Mostly it's traditional artists on Instagram. Twitter seems to be the place to be, and you have Twitter, and you have Discord, and I think they've even branched out to which is, I'm too old for this, but it's Twitch TV, whatever, where you can live stream stuff. But that's another place that I see NFT creators are kind of branching off to.
Are they actually doing live art on their Twitch?
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
I've actually never been on the platform. I've never done it.
No,
I think a lot of kids would do it on like video games.
Yeah, they do. And I've watched an artist on Twitch, and on there for hours just painting real time, and people sort of chat on the screen while she's painting, and it's really fascinating.
That's maybe I need to try that out.
Yeah.
Could I just ask one more question about? I don't know what, Sandra. I don't know what you were gonna.
No, carry on.
No, right. Carry on. I was just going to ask about the marketing. Are you actually bundling in some of your original work when you sell your NFTs?
Yes. Periodically, I will. In fact, I just sold 2 NFTs and the original with them to a collector that lives on, was it Isle of Man?
Yeah.
So I did lump those in, and I do periodically do that as kind of like an incentive, like, you buy this digital work and you're also going to have something to hang on your wall. So,
I take it you increase the price in order to enable yourself to do that, do you?
I do.
Yeah.
When I include a physical as unlockable content, then I will increase the price a little bit for that.
Can I ask you just a question about, because you get this unlockable content, which is basically when you sell something, you can give the person who's buying this extras. So it could be a print, it could be anything, couldn't it? Really, you could have a one-to-one chat to them or whatever. But when you do that, I take it if they decide to sell your NFT, they don't have to also sell the original art with it.
They don't. No, they don't. They don't. And I've actually been asked that question, quite a few times. And I always say that once the artwork leaves my hand, it's entirely up to what the collector wants to do with it. If they want to pass the artwork on, that's great. And if they don't, it's entirely up to them. Right. But I do make sure that I put these disclaimers in my descriptions that, one, if they're getting this physical artwork, they have so much time to contact me to arrange shipping. Otherwise, that original reverts back to my collection, then I can do whatever I want with it.
Right.
And also that once it leaves my hands, it's up to the new collector to either pass it along or whatever. But I'm big about disclaimers.
Do you do prints of your art? Like I do limited edition prints of mine. I don't know if you do limited edition ones, but it just I was sort of asking you, Tara, the other day, and it was kind of like we weren't really entirely sure what happens if you do limited edition prints of something. Can you then still sell that as an NFT digital piece? Do you see what I mean? Do you think that's something that's okay to do?
I have. In fact, I have 2 limited edition prints on my website. I'm catching the devil trying to talk today. But I have 2 limited edition prints that they've actually been sold as NFTs, and then I have some open-ended prints that are also NFTs. So I don't really see a problem with it, because I look at NFTs and physical art as two separate entities that are collected by 2 very different sets of collectors. So,
I mean, I said to Sandra as well, even though you're selling the NFT, you're not selling your copyright, are you? You're just selling that as an item. Yeah.
Have you had any bad experiences with all of this, or has it all been good so far?
It's all been great. Really, it's all been great.
It's good to know. Yeah.
So how much time do you spend, say, making art versus doing more of the business side of things?
So I think that I had this, I spoke on this earlier. I had this dream, like this unrealistic, like dream of what I thought being an artist was, right? I thought it was like you paint or you draw for 80 or 90% of the time. And then the other time you're going to art shows and exhibitions. And the sad reality, I think, and I think that most artists experience, is you really paint or draw for maybe 20 or 30% of the time, and the rest of it is dedicated to websites, marketing, social media, to all the other packaging, shipping, because you wear all these hats as a full-time artist. So I wish that I was being able to put in 60 or 70% of the time. But yeah, it's really 20 or 30% of the time is dedicated just to creating. And it's really hard for me to protect that time because there's so much going on. I actually have to turn my phone off when I create because I have that impulse to like, what's going on Instagram, or maybe I need to share myself creating this, or what's going on Twitter, or
it's a rabbit hole, isn't
ADD.
it?
It is, and then God forbid I get on like TikTok or something, because then I'm down the rabbit hole on TikTok. It's like 2 hours go by and I'm scrolling videos. So.
And of course, you've got a family as well, and you have to kind of, spend a bit of time with them as well, don't you? So it is a balancing act.
It is. Like I said, you wear all these hats. It's exhausting.
I have to say, I really love your newsletter. You write so well. They're so good.
Thank you.
Thank
you so much.
I want to sign up for that. Then I didn't know you had one.
Yeah, thank you. It's something that I've written a few blog posts in the past, and then I decided to kind of jump on this writing kick, and put out several newsletters a month, and I really found another creative outlet that I really enjoyed, and I've got a lot of good responses from readers on how much they look forward to reading these, and how helpful they are, or insightful, and I really enjoy doing those. So, and it's something that I'll continue to do.
I hate writing newsletters, and I was sitting writing mine the other day and thinking, how can I write like Jason? It didn't work though.
No, you see, I absolutely love writing, but my biggest problem is I have a tendency to waffle. So quite often I'll write a newsletter, and then I have to go, or a blog, and then I have to go back, and then I have to think, right, okay, now get to the point, Sandra. Stop just going on and on. I do that anyway, verbally.
You hadn't noticed, Sandra. You hadn't noticed.
I go off topic. I do that talking where he'll ask me a question, and then I'm like, I just wander into this whole other topic. So it's pretty bad. And I try to stay on point with my newsletters. But what I do is I will block out like 2 or 3 days, 2 to 4 days or whatever a month, and that's all I'll do is I'll write my blog post for the month. So I'll have these topics that I'm thinking about, and they're all art related, and trying to help other artists or whatever. And I'll write them in 2 or 3 days and edit them, and then have them ready to go.
So where can people find the place to sign up for those?
You can go to jasonchambersart.com, and that's where my blog and all that good stuff is.
Great.
I was going to say what?
Go on. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. See, I'm going on again. I was just going to. Did you have another thing to ask then, Tara?
No, I thought you were going to ask about the art collections Jason was working on.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask. I was going to ask. What are you working on at the moment?
So I am working on. So I've got several large scale paintings that I'm working on, and some large scale works on paper. I've got a small exhibition coming up in April here in my hometown, and so I'm trying to get prepared for that. But I am a procrastinator, so what will happen is I'll probably wait till about the month before, and then I'll power through and create a whole ton of work. But I'm trying to be organized this year and get the bulk of it done, so that I'm not panicking at a month before.
Have you done many in-person exhibitions?
I had my first solo exhibition in 2020. Is it 2020? Yes, in 2020. I can't remember. I had my first one, so it was an experience. And I've done small little group exhibitions since then. But this one in April is going to be a solo exhibition as well. So
wow,
it's kind of exciting.
Yeah. So as well as selling your art, you also created an adult coloring book. Now, can you tell us a bit more about how that came about?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was a passion project for me, and it's something that I spent almost a year working on, and thinking about and wanting to put out. So I'm a huge proponent of mental health awareness, and how art can be used as a therapy to help combat anxiety or depression. And it's not a cure-all, but it can definitely help combat it. And one of the reasons that I got back into my artwork and into this particular style is I had a massive panic attack, and I've got horrible anxiety that's kind of presented itself back in 2015. And I would draw on my sketchbooks, and these are the sketchbooks that I don't show anybody. But I would, sit here and I would do these drawings and stuff, these line drawings, and that's when I kind of branched off and jumped into like a more refined sketchbook that I show people. So I was doing these drawings, and these kind of help clear my mind and keep my anxiety at bay. And I thought, if these drawings help me, maybe that I can take these and do something with them to help someone else. And that's when I got the brilliant idea, like, how about I create an adult coloring book? So I took these line drawings and put them on the iPad, cleaned them up digitally, made everything nice and pretty and clean, and created this coloring book called Calming the Noise. And it's got 30 cubist illustrations that are super intricate, and yeah, I'm just so happy I was able to do this and have the means to do this. Before you had to have a publishing house that would stand behind you, but now in today's world you can self-publish, and it's wonderful.
So have you done that through Amazon?
I did it through Amazon. I used their Kindle Direct Publishing service, and super user friendly. And I'm going to have another coloring book coming out at the end of this year, and I'm also having an art book, a collection of my artwork, kind of a coffee table book. But it's not going to be through Amazon. I'm using a different publisher. But yeah, I'm going to have a huge 250-something page art book coming out in April. So,
are you going to crowdfund it, or are you just going to go for it?
I'm going to crowdfund this. I'm going to use probably Kickstarter once I get the bulk of it finished and see exactly what it's going to cost to publish. Then I'll run a Kickstarter program and we'll go from there. But super excited about that as well.
Do you know what I wondered? And you might not know the answer to this one. I wondered if you could do that through NFTs. Do you know what I mean? So you almost sell a portion of, so someone buys a portion of, or they almost buy your book as a pre-sale as an NFT, but I don't know.
That's a really good idea. I'm going to have to definitely look into that.
Yeah. I mean, there might even be a platform that does it, maybe. I don't know.
You should see my face at the moment. It's gone blank. I'm just staring into space. I'm just zoned out.
Do you know what, Sandra? Did you notice that Jason said passion project?
I noticed that. We did a recent episode called
Passion projects.
Yeah.
Sandra thought I was talking about something rude.
I thought she was making up the term passion project. Yeah, so it's interesting. I was very interested as well what you were saying about the art therapy thing. And we've always wanted actually to do a full episode on art as a therapy. And we want to find someone who kind of, is an expert on that. It's interesting because I didn't know you, obviously that's the side I didn't know about you. We find that kind of thing really interesting, don't we, Tara? Because a lot of the people in our group, or not a lot of them, but there are some people in our group who've emailed us and said, since I've joined the group, since I've been drawing, I've managed to come off my medication, I've managed to give up alcohol, all the various problems. And it really made us think, Tara, didn't it, of just how art isn't just about a frivolous hobby or a way of making money. It enriches the lives of so many people. And I think the problem is everyone who starts art thinks that they can only do it if they're good at it. If they're not good at it, they have no business doing it. And that's just so not true. I don't know what you think about that.
No, I completely agree. That I think that that anybody can, whether they think they're good or not, they can definitely get in there and they can draw or they can color, because it does help people. In fact, I wrote a blog post about coloring and mental health. If you or your listeners want to check it out, but it does have some bullet points on there and some actual facts from different doctors that the benefits of coloring or creating artwork, what it does for people.
Mm. So moving on to something else then, obviously Picasso you were inspired by. What other artists have inspired you along the way, whether that's, past artists or present ones?
Well, like I said, Picasso is definitely big on the list, on the list. Matisse, Monet, Dali, some of the like current artists, which would be like George Condo. I love George Condo's work. There's an artist named Christopher Mudgett. There's a outstanding artist named Alexandra Nikita. So yeah, and I'm constantly finding new artists every day that inspire me. Gabe, I talked about Gabe Weiss, a good friend of mine. Definitely inspired by him as well. So
he's got a piece actually I really loved, and I can't remember I don't know what he called it or anything, but I remember seeing that ages ago, and I think I pinned it to my Pinterest board as inspiration. It was amazing. It was it kind of it was, I don't know if you'd call it cubist or not. It was kind of a blend really, but it was almost like almost looked three-dimensional. It's incredible. So what has been the highlight of your career so far? And Sandra always adds, apart from talking to us, but
apart from us.
I think the highlight for me, really has been going and doing this full time. I know that sounds kind of like a cop out, but being able to follow this dream and to do this full time has really been the highlight. And I think also, once I got into NFTs, I think being able to interact with this, like within the amazing art community, has just been wonderful.
I don't think that sounds like a cop out at all. That would certainly be the highlight of my career if I could literally do it full time. Do you you mentioned there about, obviously a lot of marketing involves networking, doesn't it? And having to, well, not having to, but also wanting to meet people online and talk to them and network with them, really. Do you ever find it to be kind of difficult? Because obviously did you say you've got children and a partner?
Yeah, I do. I'm married. I've been married for 21 years, and I've got two children. I've got a grown son and a daughter that's just about grown.
Yeah. So, when it comes to things like that, because obviously you've got to paint, you've got to, load your digital artwork on your OpenSea, you've got to blog, you've got to write your newsletter, you've got to do all this stuff. And obviously it helps now you're full time. Do you consider that networking to be part of that marketing? And do you find it hard to do that at home when you're with your family? Because I know sometimes, I'm very lucky. My husband is really, really good like that. He doesn't mind at all. But there are times when I'm sort of answering Instagram comments and things like that in the evening when I'm sitting with him, because I've seen one come up and I want to reply to people. If somebody's taken the time to comment on something, then obviously as much as I can, I want to show them the same, I want to respond to them if I can.
Yeah.
But, I imagine there'd be a lot of times in some relationships where the other partner would say, well, hang on a minute, you're meant to be with me now. Do you ever find that to be an issue? And how do you deal with that?
My wife she's outstanding. She's completely on board with what I do. I work nonstop. I work from the time that I get up until just about time for me to go to bed. And I do this sometimes 7 days a week. I try to take Sundays off, but normally it's 7 days a week. And like I said, I'll work in the evenings. I try to finish my work by about 8 o'clock. And then we go into the family room and watch TV for an hour or two, try to spend time together. But even then, I'm on my phone, answering messages and stuff. Because like you said, I have messaged other artists that have large followings, and they just don't respond to you. And I think that if someone takes the time to send me a DM or comment on a post, then regardless of how long it takes me, I'm going to respond to them. And I think that's just the right thing to do.
Yeah, I do. Absolutely. Have you ever used your wife as a model, by the way, one of your paintings? Does she know?
I've actually drawn her. So before I got into like cubism and stuff, I was a portrait and figurative artist. Oh. And I've drawn my wife a few times. Once with her. I remember one time she was laying on the couch. I said, "Let me draw you," and she's like, "No." She said, "I'm taking a nap." And she said, and I said, "Well, I'm going to draw you." And she said, "No." So she rolled over where I couldn't see her face. And so I went ahead and I drew her anyhow. So
so she hasn't been cubismed yet, then?
Not yet.
So do you have any tips for artists who want to make art their full-time career as you have? Because like I said before, it's quite daunting decision to make. I mean, I'm just sort of, you get to a point, don't you, where if now's not the right time, when is? And yeah, I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that and what tips you have for anyone else thinking about it.
I would say that if you're going to pursue this full time, that you need to go into it with a plan. And I don't think, and even saying that, when you go into it with a plan, you're never fully prepared when you finally take that plunge and you see what doing this full time actually looks like versus, what you thought it was going to be.
Yeah, because like you say, that a lot of people would just think 90% of your time would be spending in front of an easel, and that's just not the case at all, is it?
It's not the case, and the art world is very cyclical. You'll have moments when you are selling everything that you're making, and life is great, and then you will either see a slowdown or you will see a lull. And if you are not financially prepared before you take this plunge, you will absolutely panic. Before I decided to go and do this full time, I put away a pretty large nest egg. So because I was afraid that if everything slowed down and I didn't have that money stashed away, I was going to seriously panic. And I don't want to go back to working in a factory again. So I kind of went into it prepared, but like I said, you're never really fully prepared. So definitely put a lot of thought into it, and you need to treat being an artist like a business, because that's what you are at the end of the day. You're a business.
For those people that obviously aren't in the position where they can take, this full time, but they still want to, pursue an art career. When you were working in a factory, how did you balance that time then into working and doing art and trying to market so you could one day be full time? That must have been quite difficult.
It was very difficult. I will say though, I think that I was more productive when I was working a full-time job and creating artwork, because I had such a limited amount of time to actually get into the studio and work. And so, my productivity was like, I was creating like crazy. And then the days that I wasn't in the studio or I was at work on my breaks, I was doing the marketing and the social media aspect of it.
Right.
But it was very difficult. Like I said, I worked 12 hours a day, and between travel and everything, I was out of the house, 16, 17 hours a day,
Could I just ask you about Twitter? Obviously, you said that Twitter is the place if you want to try and promote your NFTs. Right. Were you on Twitter already? And how did you find the best way sort of to get yourself out there on Twitter?
Yeah, I didn't get on Twitter until I actually got involved with NFTs. I think I joined Twitter in like April of last year. And I started going through hashtags like NFT collector, hashtag NFT, hashtag NFTs, those kind of hashtags. And you can find people that are creating or collecting NFTs through that way, and to help build up your following. And you definitely want to engage. You definitely don't want to, what they call shilling. You don't want to try to directly sell to people in their comments or through direct messages. That's kind of like bad form. But you can definitely get in there and interact and comment on their artwork. And I will say also, on a side note, if you are going to if you're going to sell NFTs, you really need to look into not only selling them, but also collecting them. Because if you look at the majority of the NFT collectors that are out there right now, a lot of them are other artists. So you definitely want to give back to the community as much as you take from the community.
So do you wait until you've sold so many and then you'll buy one?
I did. I think I sold 3 or 4, and then I went in and then I bought an NFT, and that's kind of kind of what I would do.
Yeah.
Kind of what I still do now is I sell a couple and then I buy one.
Right. Yeah. I'm still to do that.
Well, you've been doing it very short time now, haven't you? So it's all a learning process, isn't it? And like you say, you want to make a few sales first as well.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. You want to put a little bit of money in the bank first.
Yes, definitely. So where can people find out about more about you and your art?
You can go to jasonchambersart.com, and from there you can check out my blog. You can check out my online store. If you want to see my daily creations and the random thoughts, you can go to Jason Chambers Art on Instagram, Or if you want to check out my daily NFT stuff, you can go to Jason L. Chambers on Twitter.
Great. Thank you very much. So great to have you on.
Yeah,
I feel like I've learned a lot.
I actually
It's been a lot of fun.
do. I've got brain ache now, but no, it was actually, it's really nice to talk to. It's nice to talk to someone who kind of, tries to put things in a simplified way.
I hope I did.
You did. It's less frightening. Tara, you've been like that as well, haven't you? You've been very good with me.
I think I scare you a little bit, don't I?
Well, yeah, but that's nothing to do with the NFTs.
No.
Anyway, thank you so much, Jason. We have enjoyed this chat so much, and we hope you've enjoyed it too. And hopefully we'll speak to you again sometime.
Okay, I look forward to it. And thank you all so much for having me. Bye.
Okay, bye. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed the episode, and if you did, perhaps you'd like to share it and leave a review for us on iTunes.